can able to start my identifier name with the underscore symbol or by using $sign. Constant values which is stored in the variables are named as constant or literals. What is separator here? That is nothing but the symbols used to divide the code as well as used to align or arrange the code. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on Introduction to Java. I am Revati, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the topic which I have covered in my last session. In my last session, I started with the Java support system. That means what are the support system I require to run Java program. Along with that, I have discussed JDK, that is nothing but Java Development Kit. Along with that, I have discussed application program interface. Along with that, I have discussed Java runtime environment and a simple Java program. Along with that, I have discussed Java program structure. So these are the topic I have discussed in my last session. But in my today's session, I am going to deal with Java tokens. Along with that, I am going to deal with creating the program. That means how can I create my own program? These are the two topics I am going to deal in my today's session. So dear student, let's see what is Java token. Before that, let me to consider the example. That is, think that I want to construct my new house. To construct my new house, what are the ingredients or what are the material I required? That is nothing but at the beginning I required place. That is nothing but property. Then I required money. Along with that, I required labors. Along with that, I required cement, rod, all those things I required. So all these things are smaller unit, and these units are used to construct my house. Similarly, if I consider programming language, to implement programming or to write the program, I required smaller unit, and these smaller units are coined as tokens. So a class is defined by a set of declaration statements and methods containing executable statement. That means if I consider Java program, it is termed as object-oriented programming language. And when I consider object-oriented programming, here I am going to focus only classes as well as methods. So here I am going to focus only classes as well as methods. Now, if I consider class is going to have methods. Along with that, it's going to include declaration statements as well as executable statement. And the smallest individual units in a programs are known as tokens. That means whatever the smaller units I'm going to have in my program is termed as tokens. And if I consider Java programming language, I'm going to have reserved words, keywords, identifier, literals, operators and separators. So these are the tokens. So what are the tokens? I'm going to have under Java program, that is nothing but reserved words. So here reserved words are nothing but the keywords. Along with that, I'm going to have identifier, literals, operators as well as separators. Now let me to consider keywords. So what is keyword? Here keywords are reserved word. That means some words are already built and kept. Now, whenever I require those keywords in my program, I'm going to make use of it. Similarly, keywords are important part of a language definition. They implement specific features of the language. For example, if I consider for, this is my keyword, and if I want to use iteration or looping in my program, then I can able to use for loop. Now tell me, what is the need of for loop or what is the necessity of for loop? Now dear student, here for loop is nothing but the keyword or reserved word, and I'm going to use these keyword when I know how many number of time I want to repeat this statement or iteration. That time I'm going to use for loop. So this for loop or for keyword will have its own meaning and it's already built and it is kept. Now keywords are important part of language definition. They implement specific features of the language. And if I consider Java program, then it's going to have 50 different keywords. So Java supports 50 different keywords. These keywords combined with the operator as well as separator. So I can able to combine all the keywords with the operator as well as separator. Now I'm going to have some of the example. So these are the keywords. I'm going to have abstract, this is also keyword, byte, class, do, for, import, long, short, switch, volatile, case, const, double, do, while, for, try, this, etc. So these are the example for keywords. Now I'm going to have identifier. So dear student, what is identifier? Here identifiers are program designed tokens. So what is identifier? Here identifiers are nothing but the programmer designed tokens. Now let me to consider the example here, that suppose if you want to identify me, then how you're going to identify? By the name or by the subject what I'm going to teach. So this is the two way you can able to identify me. One is by my name, by my qualification, and another way by which subject I'm going to teach. So these are the two way you can able to identify me. Now identifiers are program design tokens. They are used for naming the class, naming the methods, variables, objects, package, interface, etc. So what is identifier? Here identifiers are the program designed tokens. Now let me to consider the simple example here, that I want to create a class. I'm going to create a class and I'm going to specify the class name student. Now tell me, Which is my identifier here? There is nothing but student is my identifier. Now, if I want to create variable int number, now tell me which is my identifier. It is nothing but the number. Now tell me what is identifier. Here identifiers are programmer designed tokens. So what is identifier here? It is nothing but the programmer designed tokens. And example, class, that is class name, method name, variable name, object name, package name, as well as interface. Now, what are the rules I want to follow while defining identifier? Now, what is my first rule? The identifier name must be start with the uppercase letter or lowercase letter, that is small letter A to Z and capital letter A to Z. Along with that, I can able to use digit, that is nothing but 0 to 9. So here they can have alphabets, digits and underscore as well as dollar sign. That means I can able to start my identifier name with the underscore symbol or by using dollar sign. They must not begin with a digit. That means I cannot able to write 7 number, this is wrong, or 5-way, this is wrong. That means the identifier must not begin with a digit. Then uppercase and lowercase letters are distinct. Suppose, dear student, if I write number, then throughout the program, I want to use number. That means my N is in the form of capital letter. Now, if I write num, this is wrong. That means uppercase as well as lowercase letters are distinct. And they can be of any length. That means variable, that is identifier names are be of any length. Now I'm going to have the literals. So here literals are nothing but the constant. That means in my program, if I want to use pi equal to 3.1214. So what is this 3.1214? It's nothing but the constant value. Now I want to use this constant value throughout my program. Then what I want to do? I want to define or I want to make this pi as constant. So here constants are nothing but the literals. So literals in Java are a sequence of characters that represents constant value that is stored in variable. So constant values which is stored in the variables are named as constant or literals. So here I am going to have certain type of literals, that is integer literal, floating point literal, character literal, string literal, boolean literal and null literals. So what is integer? Here integer is nothing but the whole number. To represent whole number, I am going to have integer data type. Now let me to write the example. Int a equal to 100, then this indicates that it is nothing but the integer literal. Now if I want to create floating point literals, then I'm going to use float pi equal to 3.1214. So this is my floating point literals. Now I want to define character literal, then char a equal to small letter a. To indicate it is character, I want to write that character within the single quote. Now, if I am going to use string literals, then what I want to do, I want to create array of character and I am going to write the name, that is Revati. So it is nothing but the array of character. It's nothing but the string. To indicate a string, what I'm going to do, I'm going to place my name within the double quote. If it is character, single quote. If it is string, then within the double quote. To represent true and false value, I'm going to have Boolean literals. So what is literal? It's nothing but the constant. So what is constant? The value which is assigned to any variable that cannot be changed during the execution of the program. That means whatever the value I'm going to define, that is fixed throughout the program and it's known as literals. Here literals are nothing but the constants. Now I'm going to have the operators as well as separator. So what is operator? Here operators are nothing but the symbols. So operator is a symbol that takes one or more argument. So what is operator? Here operators are nothing but the symbols and which is capable to take one or more argument. So dear student, if any symbol takes one argument, then it is termed as unary operator. If it is responsible for taking three operators, then it is termed as ternary operator. So dear student, I'm going to have ternary operator. So what is ternary? Here ternary is nothing but 3. When I'm going to have 3 operator in my program, then it is termed as ternary operator. So what is operator here? That is nothing but the symbols. And which are the example we are going to have here? That is binary operator, unary operator and ternary operator. So an operator is a symbol that takes one or more arguments and operates on them to produce the result. So what is separator? Here separators are nothing but once again symbols used to indicate where group of codes are divided and arranged. That means to arrange the groups separately, I'm going to use separator. So what is separator here? That is nothing but the symbols used to divide the code as well as used to align or arrange the code. Now I'm going to have some of the operators as well as some of the separator. Now at the beginning I'm going to have parenthesis. So it is used to enclose parameters in methods. Now dear student, if I'm going to have the method called max and it's going to accept arguments where I'm going to write within the parenthesis. So it is int a. Here comma is nothing but my separator. Int B. Now, the next operator here is parenthesis. So, here the next operator is brace. So, dear student, when I am going to use brace, when I want to write block of statements, in that time I am going to use brace. That means when I am going to have more than two statements and I want to execute all the statements, then what I'm going to do? I'm going to place those statements within the brace. Then I'm going to have brackets. So dear student, to define my array, I'm going to use bracket. So it is used to declare array type and for dereferencing array values. That means to accept or to retrieve array values, I'm going to use bracket. Even to create my array or to declare my array, I'm going to use bracket. Now, I'm going to have semicolon. So, what is the need of semicolon? It is used to separate statement, and where I am going to use the semicolon in order to indicate end of the line, what I am going to do? I am going to place the semicolon at the end of each line. Even I am going to use semicolon in for loop in order to separate initialization condition as well as increment or decrement. Then I am going to have comma. So dear student, where I am going to use comma while defining variables? When I am going to have one variable, directly I can write int a. Suppose if I am going to have more than two variables, for example, int a, b, c. To separate all these variables, what I am going to do? I am going to use the comma. Now, the next one, period. That is nothing but the dot operator. So, it is used to access the methods. That means if I want to access the method with the help of object dot method name. That means I am going to call the method with the help of object name with dot operator and function name. For example, think that I have max function. With the help of object obj dot max, I am going to call this function. So it is used to separate package name from sub-package and classes, and it is used to separate a variable or methods. So these are some of the example for operators as well as separators. Anyway, dear student, in my today's session, I started with tokens. Under token, we discussed literals. Along with that, we have discussed constants. So, constants are nothing but the literals. Along with that, we discussed keywords, separators, as well as operators, as well as identifiers. From the examination point of view, all these topics are very, very important. But in my next session, I am going to deal with Java statements. In that, I am going to deal with application program, interface. Then I am going to deal with Java runtime environment, and I am going to deal with simple Java program. Along with that, I am going to deal with Java program structure. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with more information about Java. programming. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.